Greetings and welcome back to Homebrew. Today we're going to be going over the recap of Session 6 and the planning for Session 7 of our Taking Root campaign, the prequel origin story for Emery for the Call of the Hunger campaign. Now today we don't have a lot to cover for the planning phase because most of what we needed planned for Session 7 came from our Session 6 prep. This is perfect because basically what this means is that we have less time planning and more time sitting at the table, which is ultimately what we want. Now, we do have a couple of things to go over as far as our recap. We did not plan for our character to really rely on Archek's experience with rot and decay as a Tekeknu. His bug-like society or race is pretty good at breaking things down and recycling them. That's kind of a huge portion of their culture. And so he was actually able to help out identifying the goop that the boat was stuck on, so to speak, and found out that it was probably some sort of nasty creature. And he rolled really well. He got double triumphs on that check. So he was able to tell that, hey, this stuff is not good. You don't want to be touching it. You don't want to be doing anything like that. It's probably going to spread. And so that really invoked some fear into our character, which led to our next unexpected item, which was that when Osaya, the boat captain, wanted to go out and take a look at the other ship, he's like, hey, Archek, come with me because you're knowledgeable in this stuff, right? And I was really hoping that that would be a kind of just a link for him to spur movement with our player. But our player was worried about it, and they said, hey, no, I'm going to split the party. I'm going to stay on the boat here and not go out there, which gave me a bit of panic as a DM because I wasn't sure what we were going to go with that, right? She wasn't going to, our player, Sarah, wasn't going to be able to see all the fun stuff that we had planned. Yet that seemed to work itself out over time, just with the character and the player making their own decisions. So that's a great way of giving the players agency within the parameters of the story that we have constructed, right? So that worked out really good. Some things that we're not necessarily sure about is our character failed miserably on their corruption checks, their resilience checks for corruption when being attacked by the Bogluk creature, the contaminated creature from the waters, or the old sailor. So really didn't make anything happen from that in the short term, like no poison damage or anything like that. My hope is to have that kick into overdrive in a little bit as everyone else starts to get sick. Our character will start to get sick. Now, why am I doing this? Well, for one, it builds tension for moving the story forward. It's something that's going to be something that's you can't just cure in a turn, so to speak. And it sets us up for our character needing to find outside help when they reach Lamore. Okay, so our next character, or one of our other characters that's coming into play, is Wretch Braventail, and he is a cleric. He's a divine paladin of healing, so that gives us a reason to right out the gates to be able to introduce these characters to each other. And now we don't necessarily need to rely on our character Emery being concerned for Osaya's crew, because they could be sick themselves, and it doesn't necessarily rely on a side quest where Wretch goes and tries to cure this whole crew. We can just start off with our singular character helping our other character. So it's giving us a little bit of setup for the future. Speaking of which, there's some other things that we were thinking about as well. So after this, we've got about a couple-day journey on water and then 2 days by land still to get to Lamore. And we only have this session and one more session to be able to cover all of that and get ready for the first session of the Call of the Hunger. So how do we do that? One option that I thought about between sessions here was that because of the failures that Emery had, she could slip into sort of coma with her buddy Archek taking care of her, where she could also contact her brother, and we can do some sort of like fast forward dream, kind of like a sick mirage of slipping in and out of consciousness sort of thing that gets us to skip through some of that stuff and get us to where we need to be in the story. So just some fun options. Once again, if our character starts succeeding really well in some resilience checks, or if nothing else happens, then we've got some opportunity there to knock it back and not necessarily be so over the board with the sickness stuff either. Other things that we thought about between sessions were I actually took some of the information that we had on the notes and I tied it more into the town coming forward. So basically I incorporated some more on this Chettlecorp, which if you see right here in the notes, we've got notes from Taxonomer Woodrow from Chettlecorp. So he's the scientist. I basically just added more on Chettlecorp into our city notes. So that way, if our character thinks about dropping off those notes, trying to get some sort of payout, these people will be the most interested in what comes from the haul of stuff being brought back. So that's just a little bit more that we can play into some side quests and some world building in the future. Lastly here, the only other thing that I added to our notes is basically just a background image here for the city of Lemoore, so that way we have something to look at when our character's there. It kind of gives a general feel of what the city's kind of like. So heavy industrial, but still set in the mountains and near the forest is kind of what I was looking for. So great opportunity there for moving forward. And I don't think anything else is going to come up here in the next 2 sessions. So just gives us a chance to remember what's our focus. Our biggest focus is keep our character alive, get them to Lemoore, and make sure that we have some sort of smooth transition for them to be able to meet up with the other crews, meet up with the other players. So the rest of that I pretty much will cover in our preparation for the next campaign. So this will probably be just about it. I might do one more recap from the next 2 sessions just on what went well, what didn't as we wrap up. But I wanted to thank you guys for joining me with these DM recaps. I hope they were helpful for you just to see into the eyes of someone who's relatively new to this stuff himself and what really goes into planning. So with that, I'll see you guys for our last couple of sessions here with Taking Root, and I look forward to seeing you for our Call of the Hunger campaign with Dustin, Austin, and Sarah. Thank you.